how you wait matters. There is a such thing as doing something too soon. Even though something might be presented to you, that does not mean that it is for you. Your waiting season is not just meant for you to sit here and twiddle your thumbs and just wait on God to do his thing. Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Girls in Real Life podcast. I'm your host Mariah Clayton. Happy Monday. Last week was such a crazy week for me announcing the engagement. It was so exciting because I had known for a long time and I was just honestly ready to share it with y'all. So to be able to do the episode with Justin, post everything on social media and have such just a positive reaction was more than honestly I could have ever imagined. Like the support and the love that you guys have shown me, not just to me, but also to Justin as well. I am overwhelmed, and I just wanted to come on here and say thank you to every single person who congratulated us, who left a message of encouragement, a comment, who reached out to me personally. I genuinely appreciate it, and it really makes me put into perspective how much you guys are rooting for me and how much you guys are just invested in my life. So I just really wanted to come on here and say thank you all so much for celebrating with me all week last week, especially on social media. I had a post every single day of the week last week, and it was just really, really fun. So I'm excited. We have a wedding to plan and everything is going to snowball just so quickly. If you guys listen to my engagement story, then you know that our wedding date is in March, which is literally 5 months away at this point. So it's gonna come up very, very quickly. We have lots of things to do. I don't even want to get into all the things that I have to do because thinking about it gives me anxiety, but I am just happy and excited to bring you guys on this journey with me, and I need all the help I can get. So if y'all have any wedding planning tips or advice, please drop it in the comments below because I'm looking for it. You guys will have to excuse my voice. I am under the weather. Me and Ace are both sick as usual in this household. I've been coughing nonstop. I'm so nasally and congested. I'm losing my voice. So I know I sound like a 60-year-old man. We're just gonna have to deal with it for today. I also want to point out that again, I am using my Blue Yeti mic today because I discovered that my Shure microphone, I use it to hook up to my computer, and I thought that the piece that I used to hook up to my computer, the wire, is what was broken, but it was actually the little insert port on the microphone. It was very, very loose, and it actually just broke before I started recording this episode. So that piece of my microphone is broken, so I'm gonna just have to get a new little piece to see if I can get that piece repaired. But until then, we're just gonna be using, Old Faithful. I literally, I love this mic, but I literally hate the way that it just takes up my entire face when I'm talking, but it's fine. It's fine. Today's episode is all about the waiting season, the time period where you're just kind of in between blessings. You don't really know what's happening, but you're just expecting something to happen. You're believing for something to happen. You want something to happen, but it just hasn't happened yet. So you're in this kind of limbo state, this waiting season. And sometimes we can get a little bit antsy in this season. I'm not even going to lie, but that's what we're going to be talking about today is how to thrive in your waiting season. What are the things that you can do while you're in your waiting season to help you prepare for the blessing that is on its way to you? I wanted to do this episode because I actually just came out of a waiting season, and not the waiting season that you guys think. My waiting season was not me waiting on Justin to propose. It just wasn't. I knew that was going to happen. I was expecting for that to happen. And I'm happy that it did happen, but that's not the waiting season that I'm talking about. I am talking about the waiting season of me getting a job. Y'all, this is big life update number 2. Last week, y'all got life update number 1. This week, we're getting life update number 2. I am officially a working woman. If you've been a long-time listener of the pod, then you know I have been looking for a job a little over a year now. I've been looking for a job for a long periodically time, okay? And I actually did an episode last year. It was about anticipatory anxiety, me just kind of being anxious and waiting for something to happen. I can tag it for you guys if you're interested in listening to it. But in that episode, I kind of talk about how my anticipatory anxiety kind of stems from me not having a set, I don't even know what to call it, like not having a set career, not having a consistent stream of income, and just kind of like waiting on life to happen to me. I've been applying to jobs for, like I said, a little over a year now, and the only real job that I've ever truly had was being a volleyball coach. I coached middle school, high school. I coached a little bit in college. That was like my first big girl job, was being the assistant volleyball coach at the college that I went to, which was a really cool experience. But after I gave birth to Ace, obviously I wanted to stay home with him. So I was a stay-at-home mom for the first 10 months of his life. And then once I put him into school, I was kind of just trying to focus on social media and doing that full time. And that worked for a while. But what I realized was that social media, it's nice as additional income for me personally, but I just did not reach the level to where it was sustaining me financially for a long period of time, you know? And then also, I don't know if you guys are familiar with how influencers and content creators get paid, but you have to wait like 60 to 90 days to get your money. So I would have brand deals that I've done in like January, but I wouldn't see any of that money until like March or April. So it was just really difficult for me to figure out when I was getting money, how much I was really making in a month, and how I was going to like utilize that to sustain me for the rest of the year. So I knew that finding a job was going to be critical for me. One, to have just like that consistent income that I was really craving and wanting, but two, to expand my career more so just beyond social media, because I love social media. I've been doing this for such a long time, even before it was ever a thing. You know, I was that kid in high school that had a YouTube channel and was like trying to be famous and all the things. So I've been doing this for a long time, and I will always continue to do it. But I had to get to the point where I realized that, like, reality check, this is not sustaining me in this season of life right now, and I really need to do something about it. So that's kind of what pushed me to apply for jobs and start looking for things. And I feel like I was looking for something very, very specific. I was like, I wanted to be in marketing. I want to be doing social media in some way. I want to be creating content or editing. I want to be managing social media platforms. I don't know, like I really just wanted to be in the marketing realm. And if you know me, you know, my degree and my specialty is not marketing. I got my degree in psychology. So a lot of the jobs that I were applying to in the marketing space, I knew that I didn't have the experience that they were looking for. The only experience that I had in that space was what I had done for myself. So people in that field were going to have to start taking chances on me. And a lot of times when you're hiring, especially for a salary paying position, even if it is entry level, you want someone that kind of has the basic knowledge of what you need them to do. And I feel like a lot of people assume that I just did it because my background did not come from 100% marketing, 100% social media. It was very, very hard. And I was applying to jobs and I was getting very discouraged because no one wanted to hire me. And it just got to the point where I was just like, I'm tired. Like, I'm tired of applying for these jobs. I'm tired of like getting excited about a certain job or position and then nothing comes from it. And I really just didn't understand it because I know what I'm capable of. I know what I bring to the table. And I just needed to get my foot in the door. I was like, if I can just get an interview, if I can just get in front of someone and talk to them and they see how passionate I am and they really get to the root of like why I do what I do, then it would be a no-brainer. But no one was giving me the chance. So here I am in this waiting season, this 1.5 year long waiting season of me applying to jobs, getting rejected, continuing to look for jobs, getting rejected, hoping and praying that a social media brand deal comes through so that it can sustain me for another month. And it was just nonstop of like trying to find the light at the end of the tunnel, but never actually seeing it. So actually, in the month of October, I made the video about don't fumble the ball in the last quarter of the year. And that was for me. That was me telling myself, you still have 3 more months in this year to make the most out of it, and you need to do something with it. So this was kind of like my final stand, my final stake in the ground of like, you can make this happen. Like, it's not impossible. People are out here getting jobs every single day, and you can be one of them. So October was really when I started to hunker down and just be like, we're going to apply to as many jobs as we can. We're going to scour LinkedIn and Indeed every single day until something comes up and something happens. I actually made a note in my phone. I'm going to see if I can find it so I can read a little bit of it to you guys. And I titled it, Who Do I Want to Be by the End of the Year? I probably won't read all of it because it's kind of personal, but I wrote, the main thing I want to be is happy. Most of the year I've been stressed and felt pressure to constantly be on, to always be doing something. I have not felt good enough and I've always felt like I am lacking something. By the end of the year, I want to feel content with life. I know the only way I'll be able to achieve this is through financial stability. I have never been one to chase or obsess over money, but I have always been aware that I've never had enough of it. I am grateful that I have always had the means to supply my needs, but it is not a great way to live to not know when or if you will run out of money. So my big goal before the end of the year is to secure a salary, all caps, paying job with benefits, all caps, that is flexible, remote, and enjoyable, all caps. I want to love what I do and be passionate about my work. And then I go on to say some other things, but then I have dream jobs outlined in the note, and it says dream jobs for Mariah: social media marketing, social media agency, influencer marketing manager, influencer marketing coordinator, assistant creative director. Yeah, so I wrote that. Wait, hold on. I locked my phone. I wrote that on October 1st, 2024, the first day of October. Please, I was not playing around. And I think writing that down just brought everything into perspective for me because I was actually able to see what I wanted, and I just started looking for it. I started applying to as many entry-level marketing jobs as I could, influencer marketing agencies, trying to work with different brands that I know, advertising agencies. Like, I was scouring the internet for it all, and I applied to so many jobs. The entire month of October, I didn't see any traction. Like, I didn't see anything. And I told God, and I was praying to God, and I was like, God, I really just want to get a job at the end of the year. Like, I want to be able to start 2025 off on the best foot possible. And I know that if I get a job before the end of the year, it will help set me up to make 2025 my most successful year ever. Like, I just know that it will. I was believing for it. I was praying for it, and I was waiting for it to happen. And it finally did. I'm sitting on the couch on my computer scouring LinkedIn as one does, and I see an opening at a local advertising agency in my city, and they're looking for a social media coordinator. This was a Thursday afternoon. I applied, okay? Immediately after I applied, I go stalk their Instagram. I messaged the Instagram account, and I'm like, hey, I just applied for your social media marketing coordinator job. Social media marketing coordinator, please. Social media coordinating job. Would love to know if we can take any next steps, blah, blah. Just basically shooting my shot over on the messages after I sent the application in, because it's an advertising agency, so I know they're checking their social media. Later that day, I get an email from the person who was interviewing me, and she was like, hey, we're finishing up interviews this week. Do you have time to meet me tomorrow? This was Thursday that this happened, and tomorrow, the next day, was Friday. So I was like, yes, I have time. She was like, okay, we'll do a Zoom interview. Like, I got you locked in for this time, and you will be our last interview. So I start freaking out. I'm calling Justin. I'm calling my mom. I'm calling my sister. I'm like, y'all, I got an interview. Like, it's with something that I really want to do. Like, I just need y'all to pray for me that I do good on my interview tomorrow. I do my interview. I'm like super, super nervous because I haven't interviewed for a job in I don't even know how long. But then I had to get myself together because I was like, girl, you interviewed for the job of Miss USA. If you can sit in front of the president of the Miss Universe organization, you can sit in front of this person and tell them why you love social media and why you would be a great fit for this team. Okay? Like, get it together. After the interview, she was like, okay, we really want to bring you back for a second interview. This time it will be with the CEO and with the social media manager. And I was like, okay, great. So we scheduled it for the following week, which was actually ended up being on Halloween. I'm answering the questions. I have a personality. We're talking, we're laughing, we're conversing. It doesn't even feel like an interview. And at the end of the interview, they're like, okay, we are going to let you know something by tomorrow. So we end the call. I'm just praying. I'm just like, God, please, let me be okay with whatever the outcome is. If this is for me, great, amazing. If it's not, I know that you have something better. I feel like it went well. I wouldn't do anything different, and I'm just trying to go on about my day and not be anxious. Y'all, not even an hour passes and they offer me the job. And when I tell you, I actually was on a call at the time, so I couldn't scream. But internally, I was freaking out because I was like, oh my gosh, I did it. Like, I got my foot in the door. I made a good impression and I got the job. And I was the last person that they interviewed. And had I not been looking and scouring the internet and like being expectant of something to actually happen for me, I could have missed this opportunity entirely. So the timing was just crazy, and they ended up offering me the job, and I started working the first week of November. So from October 1st, when I made that declaration in my phone of what I wanted, when I actively started doing things that would get me to where I wanted to be, a month later, I see results. And it was just crazy to think that like this 1.5 year long journey of me being in my waiting season, of me expecting something to come, the time has finally come for that time to be here. And it's just crazy to think about because honestly, there were other opportunities during that 1.5 years that I could have taken. Like there were other jobs that I applied to that were not what I wanted to do that I could have taken. I got offered a job literally 3 weeks before I got offered the job that I accepted the offer to. It was for ABA therapy, working with autistic kids. And while I did think that that would be enjoyable and I would be helping people in such a special way, I knew that it wasn't something that like my heart was in. And so even though I could have taken that as the opportunity of like, okay, God, is this you giving me what I want, my job before the end of the year? I continue to be expectant and believe that something that I wanted, something that I outlined for myself in this list in my phone was actually going to come to pass. That's why it's so important to have discernment and to pray, because after I got offered that job, I literally had to tell them, I was like, I need a couple of days. I need to pray. I need to think. I need to like make sure that I'm not about to just take this job just because it's what's in front of me right now. So being able to take that time and really pray with God and really feel in my spirit, is this right for me? Is this what I should be doing? And coming to the term being no, and like being in the same place that I was, no job, still waiting, still hoping, still expecting something to happen. Like it was scary to like stay in my waiting season. But I do want you guys to understand and realize that there is a such thing as doing something too soon. There is a such thing as taking an opportunity that was not meant for you. Even though something might be presented to you, that does not mean that it is for you. I can't remember what I was listening to, what I was reading. I don't remember what I was listening to. But they were talking about God being tempted by the devil. He went into the wilderness to pray for 40 days, 40 nights, and the devil continually came up to him and said, I can give you everything that you see, or if you're God, turn this into bread, or do this, do that. I can give you all of these things, right? And it just goes to show you that the world can give you things as well. Like God will give you blessings and give you things, but the world will also present things to you, and you need to have a close relationship with God in order to be able to discern which is which, because you can really set yourself back 20 steps if you're taking something that you think is from God but is actually from the world. I know in today's society, when we're presented with things and when we want something, we want it to happen so quick and so fast. And sometimes when things present themselves and we're in a vulnerable state, which I was in a vulnerable state, I could have accepted that job. So you have to be very, very careful with what you accept when you're in a vulnerable state. Don't be so eager to grab something in front of you when you're in a vulnerable state, when there could be something so much better for you, not even 20 days later. That's why patience is so important in the waiting season, because if you become too eager, if you become too hungry for something and you just start taking the first thing that is offered to you, you're going to find yourself in a world of a mess. Would I have liked that job? Maybe, but would it have fulfilled me? Absolutely not. And I know that wholeheartedly, because I know that in my heart, that's not what I want to do. Even though I would be making a substantial impact on young kids' lives and teaching them how to talk and how to communicate and how to socialize, it was not going to fulfill me in the way that I needed to fulfill me in the long run. And I think that I would have ended up being more unhappy at that job than I was without a job at all. That's not even what I'm supposed to be talking about today, but I just wanted to make that clear, is like, be careful what you accept in your vulnerable states, and be careful to be able to discern when the world is offering you something and when God is offering you something, because the two look very, very similar, but they can give you very different outcomes. But yeah, like I said, that's not even what we're talking about today. We're talking about the waiting season. And I know I've kind of been talking a lot already, but this is like the meat and the potatoes of what we're going to be discussing today. I've read the book of Exodus. And for those of you who don't know, Exodus is the story of the Israelites being freed from the Egyptians by Moses. And they are supposed to be going to the promised land, the land flowing of milk and honey. They were supposed to be delivered from Egypt and going to this promised land that was promised to their forefathers, Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, all of those important people in the Bible. Okay. So what was supposed to be a journey of like a few weeks ended up turning into a journey of 40 years. And I think the Israelites are a great representation of a waiting season and how important the waiting season really, really is. We sing songs like from Maverick City, I'm gonna wait on you. I've tasted your goodness. I trust in your promise. I'm gonna wait on you. Another one. What's another song about waiting? I don't mind waiting. I don't mind waiting. We sing all these songs, right? And we have to be careful with what we're saying, because even though we might be singing, we don't mind waiting, our words are not lining up with our actions, because in our waiting season, we are actually impatient. We are actually ungrateful. We are actually angry at God because we're not getting what we think that we should be getting in our waiting season. So even though we sing those songs and we say like, God will wait on you, we trust in your goodness and your promise, our actions hardly ever line up with those words. How you wait matters. It matters so much what you do with the time in your waiting season. And I honestly think the Israelites coming out of Egypt are the blueprint of what not to do. The Israelites show us how not to wait. They show us all of the things that we should not be doing in our waiting season. They were so hopeful and expectant when they came out of Egypt, and they were so grateful to Moses and all of these things, right? Like they got out of slavery. But as they continue to go through the wilderness and they continue to travel and try and make it to the promised land, they complained at every step of the way. Like, oh God, we're hungry. We don't have anything to eat. So God gives them manna and they're able to eat this. And this is the only thing that they're able to eat for such a long time that they're like, oh God, how we long for meat, how we long for the food from Egypt, because even though we were slaves, at least we had a nice big plate of meat in front of us. I don't know what they were saying, y'all, but you have to go and read the story for yourself, the book of Exodus, and just look at how the Israelites switch up on God, right? Like they go from being slaves and to being delivered to now wishing that they could go back to being slaves, because the waiting season, the process that it's taking for them to get to the promised land is too much for them. They thought it was supposed to be easy. They thought that they were supposed to just wind up at the land flowing with milk and honey without any type of issues or problems. And when it didn't happen that way, they're wishing and wanting to go back to being slaves, because at least they had food, at least they had shelter, at least they had a place, like all these different things that they were complaining about. And so because of their attitude during their waiting season, God punishes them for that. Like God literally, it's so like you have to go and read this story, because God says so many things. Like he basically calls them hard-headed. He calls them stupid and ungrateful. Like it's actually insane. But yes, God punishes them for the way that they act during their waiting season. These people literally created gods and like idols of gold and like was trying to worship them when Moses was up on the mountain trying to intercede on their behalf. God literally kills pretty much almost everyone along the way aside from the children because of the way that the Israelites are acting. They're like, I'm not even going to allow you to see the promised land because you continue to complain, you continue to not have faith in me, and you continue to doubt who I am and what I am able to do for you. So why would I reward you by bringing you to the land flowing of milk and honey? I'm not. So it's very, very important that you guys understand that how you wait matters, and what you you do with this time in your waiting season is so, so important, and is going to be able to tell God how ready you actually are to receive the thing that you're waiting for. What is the point of a waiting season? The first reason we have to wait is in order to grow, okay? We have to wait in order to grow. Our waiting seasons serve a purpose, and a lot of times that purpose is to develop things in us that will help sustain you when you get to where it is that you want to be. So in the waiting season, you're learning patience. In the waiting season, you're learning obedience. In the waiting season, you're developing your character and you're letting go of old habits, right? Like, the waiting season is the process where you become refined, and being refined can be painful. To refine literally means, I just looked it up, to refine literally means to remove impurities or unwanted elements from a substance, typically as part of an industrial process. So this is a process, and not only is it a process, but it is a painful process. It is literally you losing pieces of yourself, losing all of the bad habits and characteristics and traits that you develop from the world, and dying to yourself in order to be reborn again into a new creature by God. So this is not just some, I'm changing, I'm turning from a caterpillar to a butterfly. Like, no, this is literally you building up pressure and losing pieces of yourself so that you can become a diamond. Second point of a waiting season is to avoid a premature blessing. Like I said earlier, there is a such thing as doing things too soon. If you do something that you are not ready for or prepared for, you can fumble it. It can just crumble out of your hands, and you can look up and not even realize what happened. Sometimes you might feel ready. Sometimes you might feel anxious. Sometimes you might be comparing yourself to the people next to you, to the people on social media, to the people in your life and at your job. But there's still work in you that needs to be done that you can't see, but God can, because He's omnipresent and He can see your future just as well as your past. And He knows what you need to do during this season in order for you to be successful when you actually do get the blessing that you're waiting for. You don't want to waste an opportunity by being impatient and doing something too soon. And then the last reason that we need waiting seasons is to build faith and trust in God. I have a whole podcast episode on how to build your faith and what that looks like, so I'm not going to dive too deep into this, but I said it before and I'll say it again. Your faith has to be built. It has to be worked for. It's not just something that you get. You can't just say, I trust God, I believe in God. You have to actually go through difficult things in your life to build your trust and your faith in Him by consistently relying on Him. The waiting season allows us to lean on God's understanding and not on our own. And it also teaches us to trust His timing and His process, because once God proves to you that He actually does know what He's doing, right? When you're able to come out of a waiting season and you look back and you see all of the ways that God protected you, when He has proven that to you before, you know that He can prove it to you again when you're in a new waiting season. Oh yeah, another thing, waiting seasons don't just end after one. Waiting seasons are reoccurring. Yeah, I'm sorry to break that to you. But yes, your waiting seasons allow you to build that trust and to build that faith in God, because you know that if He proved it to you before, and if He did it before, He will do it again. And that is the only reason that I was able to hold out faith after I turned down that first job offer, that God was going to provide for me. It's because when I reflect and I look back on all my life and all that I've been through, I see how, when, and where God protected me, why He didn't let me get the things that I wanted in certain moments, why I had to go through certain things, and the traits and characteristics that I had to develop for future reasons, right? Like, that's why I was able to say no to that job, because I had full trust and faith in God that He was going to continue to bring me out of this situation, because He's brought me out of past situations. And if you don't allow yourself to go through things, to stay in the waiting season so that trust and that faith can be built, you will never rely on God's guidance. You will always try and do things yourself. You will never have discernment. So that's why it's so important. This waiting season is so important, because you're getting all of these things. You're getting the growth and refined. You're you're learning patience and you're learning how to rely on God's timing and to have faith in him in every single thing that's happening in your life. I'm sorry the lighting keeps changing, y'all. It's so overcasty outside. It's actually disgusting. We have a hurricane coming, so we're hoping that it doesn't rain, but whatever. So like I said, the Israelites are the blueprint of literally what not to do in your waiting season. So your question to me is probably, Mariah, well, how do we wait? How do I thrive in my waiting season? What am I supposed to do during all this time that I have? I'm so glad you asked, because y'all know I got 5 steps. Please, me and my 5 steps. But no, I'm serious. I have 5 steps on how to wait on God so that you don't end up like the Israelites and dying before you're ever even able to reach the promise that God has told you. So the first way you're going to thrive in your waiting season is you're going to be patient, okay? It is so important. Patience is so important. It is a fruit of the Spirit. It is something that God wants us to intrinsically have within ourselves, because he knows that if we make decisions too prematurely, if we're too eager and too anxious, we can mess up our lives. We can make decisions that will cause us drastic consequences. So patience is key. I think God is funny in the way that if you don't practice patience, he's going to make you wait longer. Oops. Did I say that? I did. But that's truly what I believe. Like, I really do think that when you're in your waiting season, the longer that you continue to exemplify that you are not patient, that you just cannot wait, God is going to continue to put you in situations where you do have to wait. So it might do you some good to practice patience early on, right? Like, to really make a note to wait on God, trust his timing, and be patient and be still, and stop trying to constantly do things on your own and make opportunities happen for yourself, because you're just wasting time. You're just adding on the time, right? Like, that's what I meant. You're not, well, I guess you are wasting time, but you're in a sense adding on time that doesn't need to be added on, because you're refusing to learn the lesson that you need to learn in the waiting season, which is patience. Okay. Number 2 on how to thrive in your waiting season. Don't complain. Oh my gosh. When y'all read Exodus, if you've never read it before, you will see the Israelites complain to no end. It's like one thing after the other. It literally gets so annoying, because we know the end of the story, right? We know the Israelites eventually make it to the land that was promised to them by God. But in the moment, they don't see it. They don't see the light at the end of the tunnel. So they're constantly complaining through the process because they don't see the end in sight. It's easy for me to get a bird's eye view and be like, man, if the Israelites just would have stopped complaining, maybe they would have reached the promised land sooner. But when we're in the waiting season, it's difficult for us to see. It's difficult for us to have common sense and to trust and believe that God is going to do what he says he's going to do, because we don't see it. Like, we need proof, us as humans. We need tangible proof. We need a written out agreement saying this is going to happen at this time. Like, we're just very, very particular. And I don't think God really likes that quality about us. He just wants us to be able to trust and know that he's going to do what he said he was going to do, and to not complain about the fact that he's not doing it in your timing. So don't be like the Israelites. Don't complain. Don't focus on everything that you don't have, but continue to focus on everything that you do. If the Israelites would have been like, thank you, God, for delivering us out of Egypt. Thank you, God, for providing us with this manna that we don't even have to worry about what we're going to eat day after day. Thank you, God, for getting us through the wilderness safely. Thank you, God, for allowing us to defeat our enemies, right? Like, if they would have had that type of heart, a heart of gratitude for everything that God was giving them and blessing them with, they wouldn't have been focused on the fact that they haven't made it to the promised land yet. They still would have been praising about the fact that they got out of the bad situation that they were in the first place. So yeah, don't complain in your waiting season, because you're delaying your journey to the promised land. Number 3 on how you're going to thrive in your waiting season is you have to be expectant. You have to know that that light is at the end of the tunnel, and that you will get there one way or another, okay? Many of the Israelites, I think, were so discouraged and complained so much because they lost sight of the promise that God had given them. They were promised a land flowing of milk and honey, but they didn't see a land flowing of milk and honey. So they forgot about the land flowing of milk and honey, and again started focusing on everything else that was happening around them instead of being expectant and optimistic about the journey that they were taking. So we have to hold tight to God's promises to us and be hopeful for our future, and to look forward with optimism and expectation, and not continue to look back and wish that we were back where we were. Which brings me to point number 4 of how to thrive in your waiting season. Don't reminisce. And again, I had a podcast episode all about this, about not looking into your past. I forgot what it was called, but y'all know what I'm talking about. You cannot romanticize your past so much to the fact that you forget everything that you went through during that season of your life. The Israelites were literally enslaved to the Egyptians, and they would be in the wilderness talking to Moses and saying how they wish that they would have just stayed in Egypt, how Moses should have never came and got them, because at least they had everything that they needed when they were in Egypt. And it's like, do you not realize that you were slaved and beaten and doing unpaid labor? Like, come on now. We can't really forget about that. But the thing is, when we're in a waiting season and we're experiencing like new issues and new troubles, we want to go back to the devil that we know. We want to go back to the where things made the most sense to us, what we're most used to, our comfort zone, because at least we know that pain. We don't know this pain, and we don't know the pain that's coming. So I don't want to be here when the bad things happen, right? Like, that's kind of how we think, but we have to remember that our future is so much greater than our past could ever be, and you cannot be so caught up on the great things from your past that you miss out on the journey that is the waiting season and everything that you can get from this moment in time. And then number 5 on how to thrive in your waiting season is you have to prepare for what's coming. Okay. Your waiting season is not just meant for you to sit here and twiddle your thumbs and just wait on God to do his thing, because I don't need to do anything. No, in this season, you need to do everything. And everything that you do is going to show God how ready you actually are to receive the blessing that you want. When the Israelites were in the wilderness, God gave them a lot of rules and a lot of regulations. They had to do a lot of things. They had to build a tabernacle. They had to celebrate all these different holidays. They had to do all these different types of sacrifices, right? All these different things. And God made them do that in the wilderness because he knew that when they reached the promised land, there were going to be people there who did not do things the way that the Israelites did things. And so when God brought them to the promised land and had them go and kill all the people that were living there, he literally told them, don't leave not one person, because they will try and get you to do things their way. They will try and get you to praise their gods. They will try and get you to do their practices and their religions and their culture, right? Like, they're going to try and get you guys to act like them. And I need you to be disciplined in what we did in the wilderness. And I need you to celebrate Passover. I need you to not eat this certain type of meat. I need you to not praise this God. I'm the only God you praise. So he had to prepare the Israelites for what was coming. And the same way that he prepared them, he is preparing you. The world, they're going to try and get you to do so many different types of things. They're going to try and get you off track in any way that they can. But in the waiting season, God is instilling that discipline and that obedience and that patience in you, so that when you get to where you want to be, when you reach the blessing, when you reach the promised land, you're not going to be persuaded by outside factors and outside influences and do things their way, because in the waiting season, God already showed you how he wanted you to do the thing when you got there. So use this time to prepare, fully arm yourself with everything that God is trying to teach you, so that when you get to where you want to be, you're not going to fumble, you're not going to fall, you're not going to fail, you're going to stand strong in who God called you to be. That was pretty much the last thing that I had to say. But I just want to leave you guys with this thought, because it is something that I am struggling with a little bit right now. But that is, don't assume that your blessing will put a band-aid over your life. I'm out of my waiting season. I got the job that I wanted. I'm doing the things that I love. And I thought that that would put a band-aid over my life. I thought that it would fix every single problem that I had. But from my experience, after just my first week of work, it has created new problems. And I think that just goes to show that when God raises you to new levels, again, your world is not just going to be perfect and like, oh, everything's great, I got the promise. No, there's still work that has to be done, because this is continual. This is not just a one and done type of situation. God is not a one and done type of God. So yes, I will raise my hand and admit that when I got this job, I thought that all of my problems were going to go away. I thought that my anxiety was going to go away. My financial troubles were going to go away. I wouldn't have anything to worry about. And what I'm learning is that yes, it has solved some problems in my life, but it has also in a way created new ones. The Bible says, to whom much is given, much is required. So because God is elevating me in my life right now, he's going to require more of me. And I am learning that being at work all day, I don't have time to record this podcast the same way that I used to during any time of the day. I'm literally recording this on a Saturday, and this has to be up on a Monday, right? Like, I have to do so much more work because more is required of me at this level. And because I was disciplined in my waiting season of recording the podcast every single week and praying to God on what to talk about every single week, I'm still doing that now. So I'm being disciplined. This is literally an act of discipline, sitting in this chair and talking into this microphone, because of what I've done in my waiting season, because of the traits and the characteristics and the values that I obtained while in my waiting season. There's more required of me. What does that mean? It requires me more sacrifice. It requires me to have more discipline, right? Like, I got to wake up early. I got to go to work. I got to get off of work, pick up Ace. I've got to clean the house. I've got to make sure I'm getting my content out. I've got to make sure I'm recording the podcast. It's a lot. It is. But I was preparing in the waiting season. And so even though this might create new problems for me and I have to navigate my life now in a completely different way, I simply realize and understand that it is because I have more that is required of me. And that's all I got to say. I don't want you guys to think that once you reach your blessing and once you reach your promise, that everything is just going to be fixed and a band-aid is going to be put over your life and things will be great, because it won't. Things will get harder. Okay? When the Israelites got to the promised land, they still had to fight people. Yeah, they did. They still had to fight culture. They still had people trying to get them to praise and worship other gods. They had to work the land, right? Like, God didn't just give them this land and be like, yep, this is it. No, they had to work the land. They had to till the land. Every 7 years, they had to release their slaves because of Jubilee, right? Like, there were so many rules and regulations that God had in place in order for them to be able to thrive in their promised land. And in your waiting season, he wants you to thrive in your waiting season so that you can thrive in the promised land. And that's the only message that I'm trying to get out to you guys today, is how you wait matters. What you do with this time matters. How you approach this, it matters. God sees it. And if you honor God, he will honor you. I know it's hard being in this season. Trust me, I was in it. And I'm going to be in another one because, like I said, waiting seasons, they're always coming. They're going to come and they're going to go. But trusting in God and his timing and knowing that everything works out the way that it's supposed to, that's where my faith lies in. That's why I don't go crazy and I don't just think it's the end of the world when I'm dealing with something, when I'm going through a hard time, when I'm in a waiting season. Yes? Okay. I'm going to go because Ace just woke up from his nap and I've already been talking for a very, very long time. But I love you guys so much. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed the episode. If you did, be sure to subscribe to the podcast. Leave me a nice little comment, a review, a 5-star rating. I also forgot to mention in the beginning of this episode, I'm wearing our merch. This merch is kind of old. It's about 1.5 years old, but I actually had somebody order a sweat set, which is what made me remind you guys, like, I still have some of these available. The sweatshirt says society standards suck, because they do. It is a full sweat set. We also have a t-shirt and a hat as well. You guys can go on our website and check out the merch if you want. But yeah, that's all I have to say. I hope you guys have a great Monday, a great week, and I'll talk to you in my next episode. Bye.